Hey everyone, how y'all doing today? Don't mind the noise in the background. Air conditioning is on. I'll try to filter it out during editing and all that. So we're going to take a look today at a GameGear that I picked up a while back. Now, this is not the same GameGear I worked on already, which I never actually got around to finishing that project. And if I still have the footage, I'll show you why. But regardless if I have it or not, the reason I haven't finished that one yet is because of the fact that the soundboard on the old GameGear is done, basically. You may remember that it had some corrosion on there due to the leaky capacitors and everything. So I went to attempt to replace some of the capacitors on the soundboard because whoever worked on it before had put one of them on backwards. And when I went to desolder the capacitor, it ripped the entire trace off from the capacitor to the audio amplifier. Now, that could be fixed with some bodge wires, but it gave me the ability to see a little bit more of how much damage there was to that board, and it would just require too many bodge wires and too much work to rescue it. So I got a replacement soundboard that I picked up online. It's a kit. I got to put it together. Haven't had a chance to really do that just yet, so I'm going to probably wait on that one, and instead we're going to take a look at this other GameGear. But of course, we first have to make sure it works. So let me grab a power adapter. I'm not going to use batteries. Pretty sure that's in the off position. So it's a 9-volt DC. It is center positive. And I've got my universal adapter set. That should be fine. We'll try copy of Sonic 2 and Sonic Tails. And nothing. Maybe this isn't the right. Let's see. I think it's the one with this yellow tip. Yeah, that fits better. So power's on. Yeah, so there's some lines on the screen. And there is a backlight, but nothing else. I'm not sure. Volume's all the way up. But this most likely needs capacitors replaced, just like every other GameGear out there. So, let's open this up and see what we find inside. Further, we're going to need a Phillips driver. I'm using a PH1, and you also need a game bit for this one. Screw up there. Let's take a look inside the battery compartment. Very clean. People made sure to not leave their batteries in here. So we've got 6 screws plus the game bit means 7. Let's see what kind of horrors we find inside of here now. And I'm not talking about just the capacitors. We want to see if there's any critters in here or anything like that. It's not really that bad. I mean, there's definitely signs of electrolytic leakage, especially here near this cap. Well, near just about all of them, but it's not terrible. It's the 1-chip ASIC. Looks like this is the... Which model is this? Where is the model number? I forget. The VA1. So this is a VA1 8379024. So go ahead and disconnect these cables here. I can't grab that one easily. Normally I don't like pulling on the wires, but in some cases you can't avoid it. Yeah, these caps have leaked on the soundboard. This have to be removed. These don't seem to have leaked. They'll still be replaced. Get that out of the way. And we'll take a closer look at this one, and you can almost definitely see corrosion everywhere. But we gotta disassemble everything and take a closer look at the board itself. So let's get that going next. So no corrosion inside this half of the shell, although there is a pet hair. Looks like some of the membranes got stuck. There's definitely some residue on this board. I don't know if it's electrolytic fluid, I don't know if it's flux, but I don't see corrosion, so it's probably not electrolytic fluid. Doesn't seem to be any damage here, so a little bit of discoloration there, but again, I think that's just flux. We can move this to the side. Alright. We definitely have to replace these capacitors. We all know that. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them on this board here. We'll take a look at the other boards later. Looks like we've got 10 microfarads, 6.3. Yeah, I should definitely have most, if not all, of these values. I have them both in a surface mount like this, as well as your traditional through hole. Set this to the side, and we'll take a look at the other two boards. I'm not sure if it's coming through or not, but you can definitely see corrosion here and here, as well as here. Again, the nearby components don't seem like they were affected really. There's a little bit of gunk on the audio amplifier here, but I should be easily clean. Nothing really on the bottom either, so not too much damage, if any. Good sign. Take a look at the power board here. I don't see any corrosion or anything on the bottom of this at all, nor do I see anything on the top, which means these capacitors have not leaked. I might still replace them just because I'm already going to be doing the rest of them. What's 3 more? But of course, I have no idea if that screen is good or not. Oh my god, the capacitors are bad, but if that screen isn't working, it's not going to matter. The replacement screens are not cheap, and they're not even easy to install. So I want to try to avoid that if possible. So I may get done recapping this whole thing and it still won't work. And all of a sudden I hear thunder outside, so I'm going to stop working for now, because in the event the power goes out, I am not going to be able to see anything to get out of the basement. Plus, I don't think I want to be working with a soldering iron during a storm either, so hopefully it'll pass quickly and I can get back to this. We'll be back. So I'm doing a voiceover right now because I didn't capture any audio during this section, but I'm basically just going to replace the capacitors at this point and describing the process I'm going to use. And basically I'm going to take some side cutters and trim the legs off instead of trying to desolder them from the pads. And that's mainly to make sure that they are completely severed, because these are epoxied onto the board and you're going to have to use some pliers to kind of pry them off, twist them off. And I don't want to inadvertently rip any pads or anything like that. So I'm just going to skip to the end where I've got all the caps removed, and we'll go from there. So I got stupid lucky, and every single one of these capacitors just detached easily with no effort. Most of them were already detached before I even got to clip them. So the electrolytic fluid definitely got underneath to the epoxy and completely dissolved it or something. So kind of fortunate there. But it also means that I kind of staved off some disaster, since it doesn't seem like they've leaked too far out away from their areas. So this one, again, was tough. I was able to snip it, though. I just have to go carefully like that, snip it. Fortunately, because it was also loose, I was able to kind of move it out of the way a little bit to get the other leg. So I got lucky there. Now I've got to go ahead and clean up all the pads and everything. Try to clean up some of the electrolytic fluid damage. Hopefully none of these pads are corroded, because it's going to be more of a pain. This one here might be problematic, but I've got some vias I can get to easily. Let me go ahead and I will give this a cleaning, and we'll continue on from there. So it's going to get a little bit louder in here because I've got my exhaust fan running and the central air is on at the same time too, because it is still summertime. And Mother Nature can't seem to make up her mind as to whether or not it's going to be cooling down yet or not. So I'm going to put a little bit of flux down on all the pads just to make it a little bit easier to try and clean them up with the wick. Now you may need to add some fresh solder to the pads before you can clean them up. It's going to vary from situation to situation. I'm going to take a look at this C1 over here, the one that I'm really concerned with. Actually, not too bad. This pad's a little bit suspect, but I think I've got enough of it exposed that I could solder on a new capacitor. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the rest of them, remove the remaining legs and clean the pads up, and we'll continue on from there. So I cleaned the pads as best as I could. The one in the corner here is very difficult to reach. I think that's as good as I'm able to get it, but the rest of them came out pretty decently. It doesn't look like much of them were corroded. This one, a little bit of corroded, a little bit lost there, but it's mostly intact. Same thing with this one that I was originally concerned with. It did lose a little bit, but it's not bad. And then if we move over here, this was fine. And then these two here as well were fine. So fortunately, didn't lose any of the pads. So trying to think, I think the easiest thing to do would be to tin the pad first and then heat each individual one up so that you can, so I can install it much more easily. But as you can see, it won't be much leg there if I do it that way, which is why a lot of people decide to just fold it over on itself, making sure not to, cross positive and negative or have it short out on anything else. So turn my fan on again so I don't have to inhale these fumes. I'll try to get a little bit closer here. And I'm actually going to change my tip, but I forgot to do that before it heated back up again. So do I want to trim this down and hope for the best, or do I want to do the bend and fold over method, which either way I'm going to have to trim these leads here. So the way you would basically do it is, where's my tweezers at again? Just bend it up over itself like that. Well, maybe I should have used pliers. Just some needle nose pliers like this, and there, that's probably better. Again, if you forget, the stripe means negative, although if you don't trim the leads just yet, the longer lead would be the positive lead. So I should be able to just adhere it like that, and it should fit perfectly-ish. Although that's going to short out against C41 if I leave them that long. Trial and error for sure. So I think that should be a little bit more appropriate. And I'll go through and touch it up a little bit later. Just want to get this one done here to give me an idea and to give you an idea. And to be safe, I had a little bit of extra solder. There. Roughly like that. It's not pretty, but it'll do. I'll get the rest of them on there, clean up everything, and I'll show you the final results. All right, so hopefully I'm done. Not as pretty of a job as I wanted. This is one of the reasons why people tend to try to use ceramic caps, because of this mess here. This here is a unique situation. Apparently, this is a 68 microfarad capacitor, which I don't have anywhere. So I took a 47 and a 22. Yeah, I know that equals 69. I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference. But the rest of the values I had, this was very difficult to get in there. In fact, I might need to replace it if this sticks up too high. I had to kind of crisscross these two here to get them to work. These were relatively simple. I still need to clean the board a little bit better, but it's good enough for now. What I'm going to do is partially reassemble this thing and see if the display works. Because if it does, I'm going to continue on with recapping the power board and the audio board. And if it doesn't, then this project's pretty much dead in the water for the time being until I can either A, figure out what's wrong with the screen, or B, get a replacement screen. So let me do that real quick. All right, I guess we'll call this the moment of truth. Backlight, good. Doesn't seem like I destroyed anything too much. Now we need to test a game. Hard to see, but there is a full display. It's very dim right now, but I'm not sure why the camera's not showing up, but there is a picture on screen. And it is as clear as it's ever going to be. I don't have the audio board hooked up, so there's no sound. I'll take a quick photo so that I have it for the records and I can superimpose it, but it's working. So that's a relief. It's not a waste of time replacing these caps. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of it. We'll get the audio board done. This is going to be fun. I dread surface mount electrolytics, especially since there is, if it's showing through my camera, there's quite a bit of corrosion in spots. This is going to be interesting to clean up. But obviously I'll have to do so if I want clean sound. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and I'll show you guys the results of each board, and then we'll give it a final cleaning and put everything back together. So quick update, I've got the caps off of the soundboard, and for the most part, everything came out intact. Some of the pads do have a little bit of additional corrosion. Some have been kind of eaten away a little bit. And I definitely have to touch up some of the soldering on the audio amplifier here, but everything else should be fine. Some of the caps just literally fell right off and disintegrated when I went to remove them. Some of them I had to do the clip and snip method. So yeah, that was fun. And the audio board was actually no problem whatsoever. Got those recapped, ready to go. So I'm going to finish putting capacitors on here, give all three boards a more thorough cleaning, and put this sucker back together. And this is pretty much it. I can definitely understand, as I mentioned before, why people prefer to use ceramic caps on the main board here. This just looks like a giant mess. Yeah, this one here is on me. I didn't have the right capacitor, so doubled up on them. That's fine. Wasn't a huge fan of my work on the audio board, but it's very difficult to solder things next to plastics. As you can see, I kind of melted this a little bit and a tiny bit there. It would have been a lot easier if these connectors were not installed. Really get in there a lot more easily, but it is what it is. I toned everything out. Everything seems to be fine, so we'll go with it. Like I said, the audio board itself was really simple. They're just three through-hole capacitors, and that's all there is to it. You got to be careful about this one here. The leads are very close to each other, and it's very easy to bridge them, so you got to be very mindful of that. What I'm going to do is put some Kapton tape under some of these just so that they don't inadvertently short out. any of the SMD components that they may be next to or underneath. I tried to clean as best as I could too, again, without having access to a ultrasonic cleaner and with the display still attached and everything. It's very difficult to do that. So I'm just going to leave it as is. It's as clean as I can get it. As long as everything works, that'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and partially reassemble this enough just to test everything, make sure power works, audio, display, and we'll go from there. So I've got it partially put together, and I've already discovered problem number one. The capacitor density on this side here is just too much, so I can't get the shell closed. And this is a common problem when using electrolytic capacitors like this. This cluster here is just in the way of everything, it seems. I'm not sure how I can go about getting this rearranged in a way that, let's see if I can do that, as long as they're not crossing, right? So that takes care of the bottom half, but the top half is still a problem. This was definitely in the way. These are in the way, and you can see these three posts here. That's why these areas are completely empty, is because they rest there, and these are kind of like stress points. Make sure that it doesn't fracture the board or the plastic or anything else. And that's the other problem, is that it's making it too tall to fit. And I think this capacitor here is also an issue, but it's hard to say for sure. So, I mean, they are clearing from what I can tell. And then the other issue I'm running into, it looks like the, where is it at here? This capacitor here on the power board is hitting one of these as well. And it's because it's a little bit taller than the original one. That's probably specifically one of the reasons why they used a shorter capacitor there. So, yeah, I'm going to say right now, if you're looking to recap your GameGear, be prepared for a lot of fun. And by a lot of fun, I mean a lot of stress and frustration. So I'm going to go online and take a look at some images to see how people have aligned their capacitors and see if I can try and replicate that. All right, so I think I've got the fit issue resolved. Part of the issue had to do with this insulating black piece of adhesive plastic that I think all it really did was kind of cover up that hole behind that battery terminal. I'm not even sure why that hole exists, but it's there. So I just went ahead and just put some black tape over the area, and I also rearranged some of the capacitors as best as I could. Also making sure not to pinch any wires or anything, and I think it'll be good. So now all I have to do is get everything back together, buttons, screen lens, etc. Screen lens, though, not sure how well it's showing up on camera, but it's got a lot of scratches on it, and I tried buffing them out a little bit, but I couldn't do much with it. It's not super bad, but it is distracting. So instead, what I'm going to do is replace it, and I think I'm going to replace it with a red one. And to go with it, I also have some red buttons, and look, they gave you a replacement one of these, which is even thicker than the original one, so I definitely can't use that because it is going to definitely interfere with everything. Looks like they also give you a replacement speaker clip, which I'm not going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and replace with the red one, and I'm going to call this the GameGear Master System Edition. So I also have some new membranes. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll get everything reassembled and do a final test and wrap this video up. I'm going to go ahead and just start the assembly process, and it'll probably be a montage, and we'll see each other when this is all done. So yeah, so here's my attempt at restoring a GameGear. Definitely not an easy process at all, but you know, it's what we've got right now. The display definitely looks better than it did before I started because, well, I can actually see it. It might be difficult on camera, but it looks pretty clear to me. I mean, at least for 90s tech, it's pretty good. Obviously not going to compare with like a newer screen like a Ben Van or something similar, but it'll do for now. I'm sure it's going to eat through batteries like no other. The capacitor replacement was definitely the most frustrating part of this. I definitely understand why people choose to go with the ceramics instead of the electrolytics. It's hard to try and get everything to fit right. And even now, I'm not sure I'm not crushing something, but it's going to have to be that way for the time being. But yeah, now I have a working GameGear. I still have the other one I got to fix. And I got to figure out an issue with figure out what to do with the soundboard. Do I want to try to fix it or replace it? I might just end up replacing it. So, and I kind of do want to do a full proper mod of one with the screen and maybe a new speaker, rechargeable batteries, new shell, etc. So maybe I'll do that in the future, but it's going to be a little bit of time before I get to that. So yeah, what you guys think? Have you guys had to work on a GameGear yourself? Leave your stories below. Otherwise, thanks all, and I will catch you later.